Hey guys, it's me, cyoubx, and today we're going to talk about the heated topic of the force cube. Before I say anything else, I just want to say that I'm going to be looking in this general direction from time to time because there's a lot of things I want to say and I kind of wrote everything out, so if you see me glancing over, it's not because I have ADD, it's because I want to say everything that I have to say. Before I go on my long Spielberg, which you'll probably find interesting, hopefully, I need to say something about the algorithmist, or Camille. I do know for a fact that you're subscribed to me, and so hopefully you are watching this. And most of this video is going to be centered on the speed solving thread, which is linked below in the description if you haven't seen that, or if you don't know what I'm talking about. And Camille, I don't know if you've actually read it, but in case you did, I just want you to know that in the event that you're feeling bad, you feel like crap or whatever, don't. And I want to tell you that I can totally relate. I've been on YouTube long enough to know that there are some really dickish people out there who say a lot of things that they don't really think about. It's almost like a 5-year-old spewing out whatever he thinks because he's not using his frontal lobe, you know what I'm saying? So don't feel bad. It's kind of like if you watch a really popular YouTube video and you see all these hate comments, you don't really think twice about them. Yet those comments probably make that person feel really bad if they read them. So it's kind of the same thing. Try your best to be objective about the whole situation, and also keep in mind that the people who didn't like anything you did, that's the minority. There are a lot of people who are really, really nice, and you just stick with the community, you know what I'm saying? Don't give up on cubing just because some people were mean and rude. Don't let that discourage you. And also, you're probably going to want to grow some sort of a thick skin, if you will, at some point, because when you put yourself out there on the internet, it's really hard to do. I know this from experience. You get a lot of flack, just like this video is probably gonna get a lot of flack, but you just gotta keep going, keep working, and you'll be successful. That being said, this video might sting a little. I'm not going to be personally attacking anybody in this video, but it is centered around your idea, the force cube, and so I just want you to know that what I say about the force cube should not be taken personally, because I don't know you as a person, so realistically I can't say bad things about you or anything like that. So if it sounds like I'm offending you, just know that I do feel sorry if you feel offended, but that is totally not the intention of this video. And lastly, as you keep watching, hopefully you'll realize that I am a supporter of yours. I watch your videos, and hopefully that'll come through as you watch the entirety of the video. But it's just the concept of the force cube that I'm probably going to attack the most. And again, please don't go cry, no hard feelings or anything. If you are watching this, please do leave a comment though, so I know I'm not just talking to a camera. So for the rest of you, just some background information. The force cube is basically a quote-unquote mod made by the algorithmist, whose real name is Camille, and it's performed by buying 6 stickerless Xanchis. And so what you do is you take apart the plastic and you match the light colors together to create colored cubes. So essentially you get 6 colored cubes, and with the corresponding colors. It's all very simple to understand. So this idea was basically made into some sort of a reality by the algorithmist, and it's being marketed currently through E3 Cube Store. And afterwards, after this was all sort of said and done, there were a handful of cubers who were selected to test out this force cube. I just spit projectile. I personally was not one of them, and that's a good thing, because that means I can talk about these things in a more objective stance. But the people who were chosen were actually fairly popular YouTubers. We're talking about MonkeyDude1313 and CrazyBadCuber. Those two are incredibly popular, and there are other cubers who are also popular. And the thing is that with those cubers, they have a lot of really young viewers, and young both age-wise and also cubing-wise. People who just started cubing, and so they're beginners who don't really know all that much about cubing hardware. The people who reviewed weren't really that fast, and I know that being fast is definitely something that's subjective. It's very hard to say this without sounding conceited. What I'm trying to say is that they're not world-class cubers, and I don't think that they would argue that they are. However, they do make really good YouTube videos, and I think that's partly why they were chosen. However, in general, I think the reviews were actually pretty shoddy. It's hard to say why no one was really that objective about the review. It seemed like it had something to do with the fact that they just got a free gift and they didn't feel good about saying something bad about the cube. My personal favorite review of the ones I watched was AVGDI's, because he also didn't really say anything bad about the cube, but at the very end, that last part, he was comparing the colored Zhanchi to a force cube, and I think that last part was actually pretty powerful, and so that was one of the better reviews that I watched. He basically alluded to the fact that the difference of the force cube and the colored Zhanchi was really no different, and if it wasn't really significant. So all of this was discussed on the speed solving thread that is in the description if you want to read that. And from that is the rest of the video, which will be long, but there are a lot of things I want to say, and I do want to hear your opinion. So even if you don't feel like watching the rest of the video, if you know what I'm talking about, like the speed solving thread or whatever, do leave a comment whenever you feel like it as you watch this video, and we'll have a little discussion. And if you keep watching, you'll probably disagree with my ideas, maybe some of them. I would love to hear them, and I would also like to reply to them if possible. Make sure that you're not, just be civilized about it, if you know what I mean. There's a difference between debating and arguing, and hopefully we can have a nice healthy debate rather than name calling and such. Talking more about the speed solving thread, there are basically two factions, if you will. It's pretty simple. You have people who are totally against the force cube, and among those people, maybe they were against the algorithmist and against everyone who reviewed the cube as well, but in general they were just against the idea. And then there were people who defended the idea, and they weren't necessarily for it. Like, they weren't really gung-ho saying, yes, this is amazing. Wow, gung-ho can be rearranged as gu-han, can't it? That's very interesting. But the defendants weren't really for it. They just kind of wanted to chime in and say, hey, you know, maybe this isn't all that bad. And so we basically get a list of arguments that lead to sort of central thesis statements for each team, and I'll just sort of summarize what I thought to be the main arguments. The people who were against the mod basically said that, first of all, it's not a mod. Second of all, the colored cube is the force cube, and you can already buy the colored cube, which means that thirdly, the price of the cube, $19, is really overpriced. It's 50% overpriced, and because it is just a repackaged cube that's sold for a higher price, it's essentially a scam. Now, the people who sort of defended this whole thing had one piece of evidence, if you will, and that's saying that the plastics are actually different. And because of that, it pretty much would void a lot of the arguments that people had, which is that it is a mod because it can't be bought otherwise. The colored Zhanchi would not be the same as a force cube because it's different plastic. The colored cubes, therefore, are not force cubes. The labor cost then makes it sort of justified for the price to be higher. You would have to manually unassemble the cubes, just disassemble the cubes and then reassemble them. And then, you know, price-wise, it's not even Camille's fault because it's E3 Cube Store selling it. You know, she's not to blame for the high price. And because of all of those reasons, it's not a scam. Oh, and also, it's a really good cube, so it deserves to be, you know, well known. So from all of that, I just want to say that people who defended the idea in that thread, you had no argument whatsoever. There was nothing you could really defend regarding the cube. All the arguments are stemming from the fact that the plastics are different between a colored Zhanchi and a force cube. Pretty much the scapegoat that a lot of people used was that the black plastic sucks compared to the colored Zhanchi. Nobody who was against the idea of the force cube said otherwise. It's clear to everyone that the black plastic is different. Nobody was arguing that. The real argument was the difference between colored plastic from colored die-in cubes and the colored plastic from stickerless Zhanchis. That's all that people really wanted to know, and nobody could give a clear answer. Everything was hearsay. I heard this, I heard that, I spoke to this person, they said this, but nobody actually spoke to the manufacturer, and so it's very difficult to say if the plastic actually made a difference. And so if we want to be analytical about the entire situation, we basically have two options. The first option is that we assume the plastics to be different. So what? It doesn't make a large enough difference for the cube to seem innovative. AVGDI even said in his review that he was unsure if the cube actually had a different feel than a colored Zhanchi. We can basically call in statistics and say that there's not really a 5% significance, and yes, 5% is very subjective, but the point is that the difference isn't big enough. Even if you take two cubes that are the same, say, two stickerless Zanchis, they're going to have different feels because of minor imperfections. Even cubes that are the same are going to have different feels, so it's very hard to compare a colored Zanchi and the Force Cube and really see if there's a difference or not. Overall, the type of plastic really is irrelevant at the end of the day because we're talking about a self-proclaimed cube that is the cream of the crop when it really isn't. Also, remember, all of this is assuming that the plastic is different, which we don't even know if it is. However, personally, I'm going to be very skeptical and say that the plastic between a colored Zanchi and the Force Cube is probably the same thing. I'm just thinking this from a manufacturing perspective. Why would Diane create plastic that's colored using two different materials? It would make more sense to make colored cubes and stickerless cubes from the same plastic material. It's just cheaper. But again, this is just my poor speculation, so if you don't want to buy any of the things that I'm feeding you, you know, it's fine. It's totally fine. But we have option B, and that's that the plastics really are the same between a colored Zanchi, again, not black, but colored, and a stickerless Zanchi. If those two plastics are the same, then we have an issue. If you follow the train of thought that everyone had for the against side, everything that they said is actually pretty logical. It is just a repackaged cube that's sold at a higher price, and from that ethical perspective, it is a scam. New cubers who watched a lot of those videos didn't know anything, and they don't really know better, so a lot of them are going to buy this cube, and that's what concerns me, as well as a lot of other people. This all sounds very dire and very scary, but the reality is that it's very possible that the plastics are the same. So that's enough summarizing. I want to get into things that I actually feel very passionate about. And what I want to say is, Camille, you seem like a really nice person. I'm not trying to say anything negative about you, but since I didn't receive a Force Cube from you, I do actually feel pretty qualified to make an objective opinion on the entire situation at hand. So the first point is that the Force Cube is not a mod. When people refer to mods, people think of things that really change a cube. If you were to have a stickerless Force Cube next to a stickerless Zanchi, and you had the person blindfold themselves and touch both cubes, turn them, I don't think they would be able to feel a difference. In fact, I know they wouldn't because they're really the same thing. And I think that's really the difference. Your Force Cube is really just re-stickering, in a way, of a cube that is already made. That's almost like saying changing stickers from stock stickers to CubeSmith stickers is a mod. And you can argue that it is, but for the majority of people, I think it's fair to say that it's easily considered to not be a mod. Secondly, the colored Zanchi is already sold by Diane, and again, following AVGDI's last portion of his review where he basically said that the two cubes had no difference in feel, I'm going to say that even if the plastics are different, is it really ethical to be selling the Force Cube? Particularly for beginners, would you really feel ethical promoting this product to them? Again, they don't need a cube that's this good. They can be fine with a store-bought as it is, and so yes, a Zanchi is good. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm sure the Force Cube is good because Zanchis are good. What I'm upset about, and what a lot of other people are upset about, is ethically, how do you justify selling a cube that's really no better than things that can already be bought for a price that is much higher? Another problem that a lot of people had is that in your video explaining the Force Cube, you were claiming that this cube would make you faster, and you know what? I totally get it, because it's marketing 101. You know, you have to promote your product in some way. You got to make it sound good. I get it. And also, just as a side note, your videos are very well made. I just totally want to commend you on that your videos are actually very well put together compared to my own videos. But saying something like that is very tricky and ought not to be said in a video, especially if you're gearing it towards beginners, including yourself, but also your viewers. And so a lot of this does have to do with ethics. You send cubes to a lot of people, and a lot of those people make videos for new cubers. You're promoting an overpriced product and hyping everyone's expectations, and by I loosely mean anybody who was involved with the Force Cube, both reviewers, creator, and also E3 Cube Store, so just in general. And lastly, I do just want to make it very clear that having a faster cube does not get you faster times. A lot of my viewers are also beginners, and I just want to say that you're not going to see a difference in your times between having a black Zanchi and a stickerless Zanchi. So at this point, I'm pretty much done talking about the Force Cube. The rest of this video is going to be sort of an argument that I have and by argument I mean like when you're writing an English paper. Yes, that's right. I write English papers as well sometimes. I don't do very well, but that's weird. I think there's a fundamental issue here that needs to be covered, and it's not about the force cube. It's about the entire situation that surrounded the force cube and the way that it was dealt with by the community, meaning speed solvers. It's times like these when I feel somewhat ashamed to be part of the community, and I made a video a very long time ago saying how I was disappointed with speed solving, the forum. This sort of backs it up. I sort of like the changes that they made, but things like this sort of just bring my hopes back down. The lack of respect was disturbing, and the childish argumentation was also really disappointing. I didn't post anything in that thread because I wanted to see where that argument, because it was an argument at the end, it wasn't really a debate anymore. I wanted to see how it sort of transformed and where it led. So I didn't want to be a part of it because then I would have to sort of choose sides and it'd be kind of iffy, so that I would be able to make this video and make it more objective. So when the thread first started, there was a lot of implications that the algorithmist was basically a scammer. No one actually said that out loud, but it was implied. And all this is something that I can't let go, because there's a difference between saying something is a scam and saying that someone is a scammer. These are two different things that really shouldn't be intertwined. Let's not forget that Camille is a new cuber. We don't have to like her ideas, but that doesn't mean that we should just immediately put her down. Discouraging someone is very different from public humiliation. And again, this video here was really more of a discouragement for her to not continue the idea of the force cube, rather than saying that she's a very bad person and that she can't do anything right. And it seems like a lot of people were basically calling her a flop, when in fact it was really just the idea that wasn't very well thought out. People in that thread really realistically could have just said that the cube was not a good idea and that people shouldn't buy it. They didn't have to be sarcastic about it. The thread did become heated at one point when Dan, Crazy Bad Cuber, started entering and started interacting with other people. Other people also started defending this idea, and a lot of them were new cubers, so I'm assuming that Dan's entrance into that thread had some sort of pull, and that's why a lot of other people started defending him, because it seemed like the people who were defending had very low post counts, which means they were relatively new users. But to all those people who defended her in the thread, I want to know why. There really was no good argumentation that could be made defending the cause of the force cube. I understand that biting the hand that feeds you in this case is really hard to do, but I mean, deep down inside, would you really feel good if a person who didn't know better spent money on a cube that really wasn't special? At the end of the day, it's just an overpriced Zanchi with a really admittedly nice sticker. And ethically speaking, a lot of it was the way that people were treating each other, and it was really frustrating to see some of the newer cubers go into the thread only to be persecuted out of the forums. I think more seasoned cubers sometimes forget that there is a beginning community, and they're often very young, like very age-wise young, and the things we post are not really fostering towards a growth in the community, which I think is what we want. I would hope that as a community we want to grow, we want more people to start cubing, and we don't want to discourage people to stop doing what they like to do. This entire ordeal was pathetic. Regardless of the true potential of the force cube, which I can't say because I didn't get one, this entire situation was poorly dealt with. So that's pretty much everything I have to say. Again, leave comments saying, whatever you want. Maybe you think that this whole video was just cow doo-doo because I don't have a force cube, so therefore I can't say anything. But, that's fine. If you want to write that, that's totally fine. I can have a nice little discussion with you as well. And that's the great thing about YouTube, is that you can leave a comment, people can see it, it's pretty much a form of its own, and we can have a nice little discussion. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and again, Camille, no hard feelings. I hope I didn't offend you or anything like that, because that wasn't the intention. But if I did, I am very sorry. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and toodles.